excited to be here in my kitchen before I move. This is my old place. I'm moving to my new place very soon, today. Oh my god. So yeah, I have put together all of your questions that you commented onto my latest post. I tried to get some of the questions from Facebook as well, but I'm sorry if I haven't got all of them. So yeah, I've tried to put together as many questions, and there were loads of recurring themes. So I've tried to kind of put a lot of questions together so that I don't cover the same questions all at once. So yeah, I am going to get started. Thank you so much for coming to your questions. Thank you so much for having the book and enjoying it and letting me know how much you love the book. And yeah, I hope you find this useful. So question 1 was someone that said they were bored of their gym routines. Now, I totally get this. In the book, I talk about periodization of training and how it's really important not to do the same thing every single time you train. But definitely in terms of if you're bored of your training, I think look for variety in exercises. That's one thing that I always tell people. So you have your squat, but then you've also got a front squat, a goblet squat, you've got a sumo squat. There's so many different varieties of that one exercise that it might be nice to incorporate different variations of that into your training in the week. So if on, for example, on Monday you might do a barbell back squat, on the Wednesday or the Thursday when you next train legs, you could try doing a double kettlebell front squat, or you could try doing a front squat with a barbell, or you could try doing a sumo squat with a kettlebell. So there's loads and loads of different variations of each exercise, and it might be worth having a little look at what variations are there and what variations you might be able to incorporate into your program that go outside of like the basic kind of exercises. So that would be one tip. The second is look at things like, for example, doing things like time under tension, or just throwing in a couple of cool things like, I know in my program I do something called escalating density training, which I think is a really, really good way of being able to mix up your program and add a bit of conditioning to a session. So with that, you would do, for example, in mine, I put 10 minutes on the clock. I choose 2 opposing exercises. So it could be swings and ball slams, or, you know, 2 different exercises. In mine at the moment, it's leg press and ball slams. And you try and get as many rounds as possible of 10 reps of those 2 exercises in the 10 minutes. So that's quite a nice way of being able to switch things up and give yourself a new challenge. And obviously, over the course of 4 weeks, for example, of that program, you could track how many you can get within that space of time and hopefully improve on that. So that's quite a nice thing to do as well. So yeah, my final tip if you're bored of your programs is I often find classes. I have no problem with people going to exercise classes. I think they're an awesome way of learning new exercises, different routines, and maybe just getting a little bit of inspiration. So yeah, try a class, see if you might pick up a couple of exercises that then you can incorporate into your routine. So that would be question number 1. Moving on, someone said, how do you get a strong core? Now, often I'm always asked, like, how do I get a strong this? For me, it comes down to consistency of training. You know, you have to have a consistency of training that body part, and also overall training. So especially with your core, you know, almost every exercise requires some level of core strength. So it's really important that be mindful of that when you're completing each exercise. So for example, in your squat, sorry, I keep using that as an example, but yeah, so in your squat you're going to need some level of core strength, 100%. So be mindful of that. Think about how you're using your core in that exercise, and then also consistency of training it, your abdominals maybe 3 times a week, for example, if that's one area that you really want to build strength on, and make sure you're progressive with that. So yeah, if you're adding load to any core exercises, make sure that you're progressed with that. Even if you're not, you know, look at things like increasing reps or increasing your ability to hold a plank, for example. All those sorts of things, you can really track that. So yeah, that would be my top tip for getting a strong core. This is something that I'm going to answer the question, but it's something that I'm going to put my head in gear and think of something that I can help people with this with, because it's such an important thing. There were loads of questions about building confidence within the gym and finding it quite an intimidating space. Believe me, I was there. I completely empathise with you, and I think yes, it is. And you know, in a lot of gyms, I toured the UK with a show for a year, as I'm sure some of you know, and so I have been to gyms up and down the country, because every city that I was in, I would go to a different gym, and I really experienced some really friendly gyms where it was totally cool to go into the weight section and people would just sort of didn't even bat an eyelid. And I also experienced a lot of times when I would be the only girl in the weight section and it would be quite an intimidating environment, and I really found myself sort of really not enjoying my gym session because I felt as though everyone was staring at me and thinking, what the hell is this girl doing? Yeah, there's no easy way for me to answer that question. I would say my top tips generally for building confidence in the gym is to always have a plan before you go in. I think often if you don't really know what you're doing when you go in, that sort of walking in and thinking, oh God, what am I going to do? I might just go over here and do something over here, and then I might just go and use this piece of machinery. And I think it's really important to have a plan in place before you even enter into the gym. So when you enter into that space, you already know, okay, right, I'm going to start on the leg press, not the leg press, do you know what I mean? You could, whatever it is you're going to start doing, I'm going to start on X and then I'm going to go to Y, so that your kind of, your route in the gym is already planned out for you. The difficult thing then is obviously things can often be busy, which is annoying as well, but I think if you have a preset plan in place, it's a lot better and you're a lot more comfortable with knowing what you're going to do when you enter into the gym. The other thing I'd say for building confidence is also looking at things like partnering up with someone, going with a friend. I know it's not always possible for a lot of people, and we're all so busy and it's difficult to often link up with someone that can train at the same time as you, but I do think training with a friend can be a really nice way of alleviating that kind of apprehension of going into the gym environment. And then the other thing is also, if you're able to afford even 1 or 2 PT sessions, just having a session with someone so that you're able to have a bit more understanding of how to use various pieces of equipment in the gym and know your way around the gym a little bit better, so that when you do go into the gym, and especially into the weight section, you know what you're doing and you don't feel as though you're kind of under pressure of sort of, God, what am I doing, and panicking. Okay, so that I'm gonna help you on that. I'm gonna think of something that I can do in the long term to help people with that, but that's my answer for now. Okay, question 4. Someone said something about I'm really unsure of knowing if my form is right, and I'm not sure if I'm doing more harm than good. Believe me, form is, it's one of those things, you can do more harm than good. I never want to discourage anyone from exercising. It is such an important aspect of our lives. However, particularly with weight training, but in all forms of exercise, there is the possibility to do a little bit more harm than good if you're not quite sure how to do certain things. And in those instances, I think, look, if you're looking to invest in an exercise program for the rest of your life, investing maybe a small amount of money in having a PT session, 1 or 2, just to make sure that you're doing things correctly, is a really, really good idea and a worthwhile investment. I'm not saying that you need to, spend a fortune on a PT. There's so many amazing trainers out there now that will be more than happy to help you just get a little bit better versed in the gym, and help you with your form. But I honestly think in the long term, for your body, for your own physical health, it will be a really worthwhile investment. So if you are worried about form, just even one session where you can say, look, I'm really concerned that my squat isn't necessarily right, and I just wondered if you could help me with that. Any trainer that's a good trainer will be more than happy to do that. So I would definitely say investing in that would be a really good place to start. Okay, pre-workout food. Now, there were lots of questions that were saying, when do I eat? What do I eat? I have said a million times, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to give any diet plans or tell you guys what to eat, because I don't really believe in it, because I think diet is so individual, and 2, because my qualifications don't go that far. However, what I would like to tell you is that, 1, what you eat pre-workout is very, very individual, and some people thrive off certain things while others thrive off others. So it really is important that you don't necessarily think, oh, well, my friend eats a banana pre-training, so therefore I must eat a banana pre-training. It's very individual, and so what works for one might not work for the next person. I personally like to have carbs pre-workout. I find that is what gives me most energy, and I tend to eat between usually about 60 minutes to 30 minutes like max before training. I don't really like to eat too close to my training because otherwise I feel a bit sick. If I'm training, there was a question that said, what happens if I train first thing in the morning? It depends. Sometimes I train at like 6 a.m. and in those circumstances I'll generally just get up and have a coffee and then eat a big meal afterwards, because I'm not ready to eat at 6 a.m. and I don't really and I have enough energy to be able to train. But it really does depend on how I feel. If I wake up and I'm starving, I'm not going to go and train and put myself through a training session if I feel like I need food. You know, if I feel hungry, I'll eat something. If I think I'll be okay, that's also fine, and I'll eat a big meal after my training. But yeah, again, it's really comes down to the individual. So it's really important that you don't sort of copy what anyone else is doing, and just generally find what works best for you. Okay. There were loads of questions about keeping weight training separate from conditioning. And when I say conditioning, I mean things like cardio. Look, I think my advice is, when I weight train, I want to get the most out of that session. And if I'm doing conditioning pre that session, whether I like it or not, my muscles are going to be, to a certain degree, slightly fatigued, and therefore getting the most out of my weight training session is probably not going to happen. So I think it's really important to consider that, like how much do you want to get out of your weight training session? I have no problem with people doing conditioning at all. I think, you know, especially if your goal is, sorry, I'm just going to sit up a little bit. If your goal is fat loss, I think sometimes, yeah, incorporating a bit of cardio or conditioning into your training is absolutely fine and to some degree necessary. But doing it with alongside a weight training session, I would often program them separately. So for example, in my own program, and I know that, you know, everyone's individual, but I do 4 strength training sessions a week, 2 upper body, 2 lower body, and then I have 1 conditioning day a week, which could be me going to a class, it could be me going for a run, it could be me doing Versa Climber, it could be whatever. Generally it's I go to a class, so I'll do like a unit, or I'll go to Versa Climber class, or whatever that would be, but that would be my conditioning day, and I do it separately to my weight training, because I don't really think I'd get the most out of my training if I did them together. I also think like that's going to massively fatigue you. And also I would say to a certain degree that could be a little bit overtraining. If you're doing a heavy weight session and then on top of that you're also doing some sort of cardio, I would suggest, yeah, a little bit too much, maybe. But I wouldn't know without looking at like how long you're doing it for. So I hope that helps. Yeah, someone asked about this. Sorry, this is going back to confidence in the gym, about gyms being male dominated. This is where I just want to like give every single girl that has the confidence to go and walk into the gym a big hug, because it's not easy. You know, when I first started, women weight training was still quite a taboo subject. And for me to enter into the gym and just be like, okay, I'm going to get a bench, I'm going to get some dumbbells, and I'm going to start weight training like the boys, you know, people looked at me like I was nuts, and that's not cool. As difficult as it is to say, just you have to be like tunnel visioned. You have to just put your blinkers on, not give a shit what anyone else is doing around you, because what you're doing is amazing, and you need to remember that and remind yourself of that. The other thing is, like, I find it really useful, just get some headphones, put in some music on, block out what anyone else is saying or doing around you, and just focus on your own session, because you have, I think it's really important, you have every right to be in the gym just as much as the next person. Nobody should be more, you know, preferential of having a spot in the gym than anyone else. You have just as much right to be there as the next person. So you go and you do whatever the hell you want to do, because you are enough and you're allowed to be there, and you don't need anyone's permission or for anyone to be like, oh, that's a girl in the gym. Hell no. Like, you have every right to be there. So remind yourself of that. Maybe, yeah, get some music, get some girl boss tunes going in your ear, but don't beat yourself up and think that you don't have just as much right to be there as any guys. And believe me, 9 times out of 10, this is going to probably upset a lot of guys, but I have seen more horrific form on men than I have on women. And so you go and you show them how to do it, because guaranteed you're probably going to be lifting better than they are. Yeah, I just said that. Okay, cardio, again, loads of people are asking about cardio. Look, I think it's really, really important to remember that there's no like one like panacea of fat loss. There's so many different ways to achieve the same goal, and so it's really important that we don't like grab onto the latest thing and be like, that is the thing, like me doing loads of cardio is going to be the way to lose loads of weight. No. One, please just don't focus solely on weight loss. That's something that I absolutely tell people all the time. And two, you know, you can get the same outcome from doing cycling or swimming or high rep, low load resistance training, or, you know, there's so many different ways of doing the same, of achieving the same goal. And when you kind of break it down, like it's a way of burning energy. So you're creating a deficit by exercising, and so there's so many different ways to achieve that. And I think, you know, for me, it's about, okay, well, there's so many ways to do things. Why don't I just choose the one that I enjoy and that I'm able to stick to? Therefore, I'm going to be able to keep consistent with it and be able to stick to that, and, you know, it be a sustainable staple of my training. So instead of like kind of being like, what cardio do you do? Are you doing HIIT or LISS? It's like, come on, people, like there's not like this golden, you know, magical formula. Different things work for different people, and loads of things work for different people as well. You know, there's loads of different ways of doing the same or achieving the same thing. So don't you know, hail something as the next big thing and the thing that's going to get you to your goal. There's loads of different ways of doing it, and for me, the word that I always come back to is adherence and consistency. If you can adhere to something for a consistent period of time, that's going to be far better than the odd HIIT training session or the odd Zumba class here and there because you think that is what's going to be the thing that gets you to your goal. Okay, turning over, we're almost there. I tried to keep it like I can talk for England, as you guys know, so I'm trying to keep it like relatively short. Someone asked about what is the appropriate weight to lift. I think this is actually really important, and I touch on this in the book. So if you have got the book, there's a whole section about choosing what weight is correct, is you know, advisable for exercises and how to select that. I tend to go for the I mean, this really depends on what you're doing, but predominantly I would say choose a weight that you are able to maintain correct form with. So if your form is suffering, I would drop the weight and be able to do an exercise with correct form before you then build upon that. And the other thing is looking at, well, are you fatiguing towards the last sort of 2 reps? Not to the point where your literally arm is falling off, but are you getting to the point where the last 2 reps are kind of a bit of a struggle? And if so, I'd say that is generally a good guide for an advisable weight, sort of. I mean, yeah, I would say that's my advice. And for me, it's about, yeah, form first, and then looking at, well, was that weight really easy, or if it and if it was, okay, then you would increase it. But if it's so difficult you're struggling to even get out the first rep, then maybe you have to look at reducing it. Okay. What is my training session? So like I said, 4 to 5 times a week, 2 lower body, 2 upper body training sessions, and 1 conditioning session on top of that. Somebody asked me about, I just remember now seeing and asking me to include how much mobility I do. I do mobility every day, every single day, and that's not a sweaty workout. It's like 10 minutes of a handful of exercises that I do, and I do that every day. They tend to take place at the beginning of my session. They take, yeah, like I said, roughly 10 minutes. A lot of it's breathing. A lot of it is just, you know, mobilizing my kind of tight spots. So hip, shoulders, pelvis, thoracic. So they tend to just focus around those main areas, and it doesn't take me long, and it's not a workout. So when someone said, like, do you do mobility on top of that? Yes, I do, but it's not training. It's just mobilizing my body. I hope that helps. Okay. Oh, guys, it's so sunny outside. I'm literally looking and I want to go outside. Okay, I'm going to hurry up. Right, next question, motivation. Right, this is something that I touch on a lot in the book, so I hope that if you're having a read of that, you find the motivation section useful. But summarising sort of what I said in the book, with your motivation, and especially in relation to your training, setting goals is so important. So goal setting is probably my best way of maintaining you know, my consistency of what I've been doing. For me, I really like, with my own clients and with my own training, to set myself small steps and small changes within weekly targets. So having weekly targets, and they can be 1 to maybe 3 things that week you're going to work on. So if that is, for example, if you have a very sedentary job and you're looking to increase your activity levels, week 1, okay, you're going to say to yourself, and write it down on a piece of paper, because writing it down means it has to happen. Week 1, you are going to walk 10,000 steps each day, okay? That is your task for that week, nothing more, nothing less. If you can try and do that every single day, that is that goal. Done, dusted, maintain it. And then maybe week 2, try and add something else into the equation. So week 2, every day I'm going to get up 10 minutes earlier and I'm going to make myself a good breakfast to start the day. Okay, that is my goal for week 2. So every day you set your alarm, you get up 10 minutes earlier, and you know, that's more kind of like lifestyle. And obviously, like I said, I touched on this in the book, so I don't want to talk about this too much, but goal setting is key, and that's one of the best ways to keep motivation, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I have 2 more questions left. Someone asked about how do they get a full push-up. That comes back to my favorite buzzword, consistency, and also on top of that, incorporating in some upper body strength training, working on your relative strength as well as your absolute strength. So working on maybe some resistance training, but also looking at just being able to hold your own body weight. So things like planks, side planks, and then also improving your core strength, because there's a lot of core strength required. It's not just your upper body that is strength that's required to complete a push-up. So working on that as well. Last question, I thought it was a nice one to finish on. What are the 3, although I haven't thought about this yet, so I might have to just think about this on the spot, so they might not be the best answers, but someone said, what are the 3 biggest mistakes that you see people make in the gym? So, I never see people make like massive mistakes. One thing that annoys me, and I'm sure that everyone is going to relate to this, so if you do, please place a comment below saying you can relate to this. People that don't put their weights away, my God, annoying. A messy gym is never a good place, okay? If you take weights out, please, please put them away. And that goes for, as well, on the squat rack, when everything is lined up really nicely, so you've got your 20s in the bottom, you've got your 10s, and then your 5s. If you are that person that puts a 20 kg plate on the top rung, like, no, okay? I'm 5'1", and reaching up there to get a 20 kg plate down is dangerous, okay? You might be tall enough to reach up there, but some of us, I'm really sorry, are not. So if you are that person, don't do it again, okay? Clear your weights up. Make sure that you leave the space as you found it. And if it's messy as you found it, then be that nice person that puts weights away in the right place, because that will make everyone happy. And a happy, clear gym is the best thing, okay? So yeah, please don't be that person. That would be number 1. Number 2 would be, okay, this is something that I actually spoke to Luke about recently. Trying like trendy exercises. So like I have this big thing about, you know, at one point I really wanted to get an overhead squat. I was like obsessed with it. I was like, right, I really want to work on my overhead squat. And actually, like, it's such a kind of, well, in my opinion, for the majority of the population, unless you are an Olympic lifter, it's a slightly redundant exercise that like 1% of my clients can probably do properly. And yet they become, and I could probably be guilty of encouraging people to do this, because at one point I was that person that wanted to get an overhead squat, Lord knows why. Yeah, so I think those exercises become trendy, and then loads of people try them, and I see people trying them, but with like the most horrific form I've ever seen, and they can be really dangerous. So I think stick to what you know, stick to what you're good at. Exercises might be trendy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone should do them. So if something isn't within your realms of ability, don't necessarily go and try those kind of trendy exercises just because they look cool, if you're not able to do them safely. Okay, so that would be number 2. And number 3 would be, well, I'm gonna say it. Yeah, my biggest mistake that people make in the gym is just being rude. You know, everyone that shows up to that gym is working on themselves. They have their own story of why they're there. They might have really struggled to walk in that door. So, okay, and people need to understand that, because that was me. Walking through the door of a gym was the hardest thing that sometimes I ever had to do on a day, because I lacked so much confidence and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I know that I needed to go and train. And I enjoyed it when I got in there, but it was difficult. And if someone was rude to me, that could knock my confidence for like the rest of the day / the rest of the week. Okay, I'm saying this is a life principle, and it's something that I think we need to apply to life in general, but especially in the gym. Like, if you've walked in there and, you know, people, it's an environment where you're exposing yourself. A lot of people can be quite self-conscious. A lot of people can be quite lacking in confidence. And if you're rude, that's going to kick someone when they're probably a little bit down. And, you know, life should never, like, you should never be rude to anyone in life, but particularly in the gym, like people that are just a little bit arrogant, a little bit rude, you don't realise the effect that can have on some people. So I think it's really, really important to think about how you speak to people in the gym. You know, you don't know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know how much it might have taken them to get to that point. So just be nice, like be nice to everyone in life in general, like always be nice, but particularly in the gym, just be a nice person and just think a little bit wider than your training schedule and someone that might not necessarily know exactly what they're doing. You know, if that's the case, be kind to them. Maybe say, oh, do you know what, I don't want to be rude, but I'd love to help you on that maybe, or, you know, do something nice. Don't be a dick, basically. I'm gonna say it, just don't be a dick. And that would be rule number 3, because yeah, that is my number 1 rule in life, is just be a nice person, because it will get you far, and it's so much easier to be nice than it is to be nasty. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. I've done it in 26 minutes, although I could probably carry on talking for the rest of the day, but I actually have to move house now. I just want to say, you guys are amazing. You make me so happy, and I'm feeling so positive now for doing this, because all your comments, I can see them, and they make me smile. So I'm sending lots of hearts to you all. So yeah, have a happy Sunday, enjoy the sunshine, and I will see you all very soon.